Okay, cool. Okay, take it away. Let's talk about writing.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, how's everybody? We are here today to talk about screenplay format, something that we find very interesting. But before we get to that, let's introduce ourselves.
Hi, I'm Michelle Cadeaux, and I am Roadmap Writer's proofreader and line editor. So if you've sent something in, I probably read your script. I also am a screenplay analyst for a couple of different contests like Austin Film Festival, Shore Scripts, and a couple of others at Roadmap Writers.
And I'm Mariano DiMarco. I am a screenwriting teacher at Columbia College Chicago, and now currently we're coming to you live from another place where I teach. I've been teaching there for the last 3 years, the Harold Ramis Film School at the Second City in Chicago. And the reason this discussion came about was Mick is currently in my Fundamentals of Comedic Storytelling class, and she came up to me one day and she asked me something about format. I can't remember what it was. I don't think we'd covered format yet, but I knew a little bit about her background, so I knew she knew her stuff, you know? And so she came up to me and she asked me something, and I answered her, and she goes, "That's exactly what I think." And right?
Yeah, and then we nerded out for like 30
we did.
minutes.
We kind of formatted, nerded out.
Yeah.
And there was this upcoming lecture that I had to give on screenplay format, and here at the Harold Ramis Film School, the only film school devoted exclusively to comedy in the world, we're all about yes and collaboration. And so I said to Mick, "Look, I gotta do this lecture on format. Why don't we do it together?"
Yes.
And she was like, "Yes." And so we put a lecture together, and that's how this came about. We want to share with you some basic ideas about screenplay format that you may already be aware of, more as refreshers, and then we want to get into some basics about format that you should always be aware of. Why is this so important to us?
So format is very important because in every contest that you submit to, there is going to be a category for the judges to score just for format, and almost always it's given equal weight to every single other category. So if you have bad formatting, that's just as bad as having bad characters or a bad plot. So it's very important.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, I mean, plot, story, characters, action, those are the things that make a screenplay come alive, right? And that's the intention of using the language within format to make that visual journey as you're reading the screenplay. And that's the most exciting goal that you should have as screenwriters. But at the same time, you don't want screenplay format to get in the way, to be sort of bumps in the road that can distract your reader from having this wonderful emotional experience.
Mm-hmm.
So again, not that screenplay format is foremost, but it is integral and should be taken for granted. So the more comfortable you get using it and the things you want to watch out for, we're going to try and highlight for you.
Yes. So we are going to share with you guys a PowerPoint that we created. So first things first, the difference between a shooting script and a screenplay. The reason that I want to bring this up is because a lot of scripts that I read have scene numbers on them, and your script is going to be docked points for formatting because of that. Scene numbers are only in shooting drafts, and they should never be in a spec script. So if you see that, just...
Yeah, and just keep in mind that what we're going to be talking about are just spec scripts.
Yes.
We're not going to be talking about shooting scripts. Spec scripts are what every writer is going to create. It's usually an original story idea. Sometimes it's an adaptation as well. But we're just talking about spec scripts. Shooting scripts are scripts that come way down the road after a script has been optioned or purchased and goes into development. We're not dealing with that because there's a whole nother purpose for a shooting script. And that's to help inform other departments in terms of how they should have, start looking at the story. We just want to look at the story from a spec script perspective.
Exactly. The screenplay elements are scene headers, action description blocks, character name blocks, parentheticals, dialogue blocks, and transitions. transitions.
We'll get to transitions.
We'll get to that.
Let's say quote unquote transitions for now, because
Yes.
we're not fans of transitions, but
We are not.
not that there's
But
anything
we
wrong
will
with them.
explain.
That's right.
We will explain. So screenplay font and margins. The reason that screenplay font is always 12-point Courier is because each character takes up the same amount of space on the page. And the reason the margins are important is because it ensures that basically no matter what's on the page, it's going to equate to about a minute of screen time. So any adjustments to either of those things is going to affect that.
So stick to that.
So stick to that. And every single screenwriting software will default to these margins and that font. So if I see a script that has been changed, I know the writer did it on purpose.
So, and again, this is probably common knowledge for so many of you because you've been writing screenplays for a long time. You know that after you've been working with screenplay format, you literally look at a page and you can literally tell whether the format is correct or not.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, that's what anybody else is going to do as well.
Mm-hmm.
So just don't fudge with what the software is doing for you, because it's great. In the old days, we didn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
We had to take out rulers and we had to do margins, stuff like that. But anyway, we don't have to do that now. All right, what do we got here? Scene headers.
All right, scene headers.
By the way, as a caveat, I don't want to come across as egomaniacal, but these examples are from what we used in class. And so we used Second City, and we used me, and we used her in the scene. But we're not tooting our own horn here. It's just for basic information.
Yes.
Okay.
So scene headers always begin with INT or EXT. The location name follows, and then it will always end with day or night only. The reason it always ends in day or night only is because if your script is going to be produced, the line producer is going to look through the script and find anything that ends in day or night, and it's going to go into a category for day or night. So if anything doesn't say day or night, it might be missed, or it's just going to be put into whatever category it fits best in. So just keep it simple, day or night.
And there are a lot of scripts that sometimes you see that say 3 a.m., dawn, dusk, all that.
Mm-hmm.
Try to stay away from that. That can come across in the action. Once we get to action in a minute, we'll give you we'll explain more about that. But for the scene headers, just stick to day or night. You don't have to get into any more particulars.
Mm-hmm.
All of that can come across visually when you start writing your action.
Yes, and scene headers are always in all caps, and
Mm-hmm.
they can be bolded or underlined, but not both. Choose one or the other, or just leave it plain like we have here.
Less is more.
Yes.
So in this case, we have interior, Second City, day.
Yes. Now, action description. This describes what's happening in the scene. Only includes elements that can be seen or heard on screen. So characters' thoughts, feelings, personality traits, things like that have to be expressed through their actions or their dialogue.
Remember, when you're writing a screenplay, just like when you're writing a treatment, it's third person, present tense, only observable behavior. Because literally when you're reading a screenplay, there should be this little movie that's projecting in your head. And that's happening in real time, in immediate time. So you want to stick to that kind of, you don't want to get into character thoughts. All interior stuff, forget about that. Express
Mm-hmm.
that through images.
Exactly. Character name blocks, characters' names go here, and the location of their voice is stated if they are not on screen. So OS means the character is present in the scene but is not visible on screen. If you're writing a television script, this is going to be OC, meaning off camera. VO means the character is not present in the scene, but their voice can still be heard. So this could be a phone call, or it could be a narrative voiceover.
So in this case, we have interior, Second City, day. The class stares blankly at Mariano's PowerPoint about screenplay format. And there's Mariano with the character name block. Notice the margins. You want to stick to those margins.
Yes.
Parentheticals.
Yes.
Okay. Parentheticals, as you know, describe how a character is speaking, who they're speaking to, or what they're speaking about
Mm-hmm.
when it would otherwise not be clear. You want to use this sparingly. And here's what we believe about that.
Mm-hmm.
You're writing a story, you're showing action, you're defining characters, you're getting all of that across, but you don't want to tell an actor how to say their words,
Mm-hmm.
Their dialogue. And so very often a screenwriter might use parentheticals way, way, way too much to get that across. Also, very often, some screenwriters will inadvertently create action in parentheticals. Way too many lines that describe literally what's actually action. So if you do that, take a moment, pause, get rid of it, make it into an action block, and you're good to go.
Yeah, the way that I like to put it is that it describes how a character is speaking, who they are speaking to, or what they're speaking about when it would otherwise not be clear. Sometimes you can use it to do a simple action like thumbs up or winks, but anything more than that, just put it in the action description.
Yeah. So in this case, Mariano's annoyed.
Yes. Dialogue blocks, words spoken by the character. It speaks for itself.
In this case, what a fun class.
Yes, and the reason that we have the annoyed parenthetical is because if you just read what a fun class, you may not get the sense that he's annoyed.
Exactly. But hopefully with other action within this scene, you'd start to realize that he is annoyed.
Yes.
Transitions. Okay. Again, you know about transitions, those cut tos, those mash to, jump to, what are some others? Dissolve to, you know, all of that. That's editing, everybody.
Yes.
That's editing. Those are editing decisions that are going to be made by the editor and maybe the director if they have some say in the way that the film is cut. They used to be much more common in screenplays. My belief is that if you have a scene heading and some action and then a scene that follows all that, and then you double space and you have another scene heading, that's an automatic cut. So why do you need the cut to? So much about screenplays is about using the space economically so you can get as much of the story out. So why take up cut to or any other transition for a cut that reads automatic, in my opinion.
Yes, exactly. So any change in a scene header implies a change in the scene.
Yeah.
So you don't need to say cut to or jump cut to or anything like that. I can get into the specifics of that a little bit later, but I don't think transition should ever be used just because, like I said, it's implied when you change the scene header.
And again, you're doing somebody else's job.
Yes, that's the main thing.
We just want to be the writers. We just want to tell the story, show the story. We don't want to talk about how to cut it, how to do special effects or anything like that. Okay, but in this case, cut to.
Just because we had to show you guys.
That's right. Okay, so here's an example of a properly formatted script.
Yes.
Thank you. Again, you look at it and you notice some things that are standing out. The scene heading, a character introduced for the first time with their name all in caps, and a general idea of what their age is. That's about it.
Yes.
You have a sound effect. You have a parenthetical there. A very short action blocks. Notice that in this case, we're only pretty much taking up one sentence at a time. And that really keeps it punching. It keeps it moving, which is really what you want to keep doing. You want that action to keep flowing and flowing.
Yeah, and like I mentioned before, everything on the page is, the margins are a specific way so that it will take up 1 minute of screen time, basically no matter what you have on the page. But you can ensure that that happens by making sure that you don't have any dialogue that's more than 3 sentences per block, and action description doesn't go over 4 lines per block. So the way that this looks now, the formatting is helping a lot with the pacing.
Sure.
I think they go hand in hand a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So that's another reason it's very important to have proper format.
Yeah. And dialogue is an entire beast on its own. It's something that comes with just writing a lot. And dialogue in movies is different than dialogue in real life. And sometimes we don't talk in monologues, and sometimes we don't talk in these long-winded speeches. It's about just the bare minimum, cutting to the bone, using dialogue that's sparing and yet is effective for what's happening in the scene.
So some things that you may be wondering about like the capitalization, like why is bring all caps and why is Alex all caps? The reasons are in here.
There you go. That's right.
Smooth transition.
Ugh.
So, what must be in all caps? All scene headers
Mhm.
always must be in all caps. All character name blocks always in all caps. Characters' names the first time they are introduced only. Sounds with no on-screen source, or sounds that would otherwise need to be recorded outside of actual filming. Special effects, sound effects, and visual effects, and important details that, if missed, would affect the story's understandability. So the things that I have underlined here, these are things that always need to be in all caps, no matter what. Everything else is by choice. And the reason I say it's by choice is because if you capitalize every single one of those things, it could easily read to a script that's difficult to read.
Yeah. One thing I want to just reiterate a little bit too, in terms of characters' names for the first time, I'll always mention to students, it's when that character is there in person. Sometimes
Yes.
I've had characters' names all caps when we see them in a photograph, for example,
Yeah.
or on a video or something. It's like, well, they're not there.
Mhm.
So just when they're there in person, and also, for example, if you were showing Michelle's laptop, for example, well, you wouldn't capitalize Michelle because she's not a laptop. So again, but it may sound silly, but I get it a lot. So
Yeah.
I just want to point it out. You want to make sure that it's the character the first time you see them in person.
Yes.
Mm,
What language is used?
yeah.
Action description is always written in active present tense, no exceptions. So you would say she walked her dog rather than she is walking her dog or she walked her dog. The reason everything in a screenplay happens in real time. And this is also the quickest way to convey information.
Yeah. Again, it gets back to that idea that a screenplay is a dynamic way of telling a story. And so you want to use the most dynamic language possible. And that's using active language and getting rid of those
Yes.
is and was.
Yes. And as far as active voice, it does keep us in the moment when we're reading a script. So even something as simple as she is walking could take the reader out of the moment because it's not as present as she walks.
That's right.
Yes. That's just a very specific thing.
And again, it just takes a little, if you're doing a rewrite, for example, any kind of a rewrite, it's just something very simple that you can go through and check and just fix.
Yes.
Okay. We got, oh yeah, this is important.
Yes, what language is not used. And again, if you've sent your script in for proofreading, I've probably mentioned these things to you. Camera angles or edits, this simply is not the writer's job. There are ways to hint at a specific shot or edit without outright stating it. But otherwise, these decisions are completely up to the director, editor, and cinematographer. So don't try to do their job for them.
Yeah, and again, just something to keep in mind, since we're talking about spec scripts as opposed to shooting scripts. There's so many scripts available online now. It's very easy to Google something, and some script's going to come up. Some may not know or be aware of the difference between a spec script and a shooting script. And sometimes you'll get a shooting script, and so there's all kinds of language about camera this and POV that and tracking this. Again, that's something that we're not involved with. That's the DP, that's the director. So you want to stay away from that.
Yes. Spelled out numbers. These just take up valuable space on the page. Only spell out unusual numbers or numbers that would be easier to read as the word. One example I like to use is $1 billion versus $1 billion as the number. In Austin Powers, it makes more sense to write it out as $1 billion instead of just writing the number.
Yeah. And redundant words and phrases. Again, this is about clarity and being succinct.
Yes.
You don't need to write nods his head, sits down, stands up. The verbs themselves imply the following words. The only way you can nod is with their head. So you just nod. The only way to sit is to just sit. You know, sit down. So again, little things, but it's all about room and space and a dynamic use of verbiage.
And you'd be surprised, like, from the couple of scripts that I've line edited, just by taking out these redundant phrases, you can cut several pages of the script just by doing this.
I believe it. I believe it. That's like,
Yeah.
Yes. I just thought of something else.
Okay.
Consistency is key. Yes. Oh, all right. Yeah. If a location is introduced as interior greenhouse day, that's how you want to refer to it.
Yes.
It should always be referred to as such.
This ensures that the reader always knows exactly where the scene is taking place. And if your script is bought by a producer, this allows them to accurately assess the number of locations, which is very important for them to do, to estimate the budget and see if they even want to buy your movie.
You betcha. And again, this consistency is part of the emotional journey that you have with that screenplay when you're reading it. If you are engaged emotionally with the story and with the characters, you don't want little distractions along the way to make you stop from going on that journey and thinking, oh wait, was that the greenhouse, the grandma's greenhouse, or Dorian's greenhouse? You know, you don't want little stuff like that. So if you keep it consistent, you're not going to confuse a reader, and you're not going to confuse, you're not going to stop the flow of the emotional experience.
Yes.
So important.
Exactly. If a character is introduced as Alex, they should not be referred to as Alexandra or anything else in the action description or character name blocks, but dialogue is fine. So if you introduce them as Alex, they should always be referred to that way, unless someone in dialogue is saying Alexandra. We will know who they're talking about, but just for the sake of continuity,
that's right,
and clarity, just make sure that their name is always the same in action description and the character name blocks. Okay.
Oh, the famous fade out. So so as you know, a script ends and you fade out, just like you always fade in, except television. And so Mariano wipes his brow after an exhausting lecture. He looks at Mick, 24, the woman we all know and love, and gives her a thumbs up. 2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
That's dual dialogue.
Right.
We will get to that.
And they rush to each other and high five. Woo! And you fade out.
Fade out.
And there you have it.
Fade out should only ever appear at the end of the script.
It's just a period, not a colon.
Yes, exactly. Because it's ending.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So
should we get to I see we have some Q&A.
Some questions, yeah.
Should we get to that before we start on the next part?
Oh, questions.
Let's see.
The audio isn't coming through.
I think that was
good.
earlier.
Okay,
so
good.
May I ask to go over montage? We will go over this. As per sounds that are special effects, sound effects, visual effects, the book and a shooting script only. I guess I'm not entirely clear on what you're asking there. We will show you, we do have another document that we can share where we explain a little bit more about what special effects, sound effects, and visual effects are.
Right.
So how do I get rid of this? There. There.
Okay.
My gosh. There.
No, you're good.
You're doing great. You're doing great. I can get rid of it for you if you want. Whatever you need.
Thank you. So Don, we'll get to your question in a little bit.
Yeah, we will get to that. So I think we should just share our document that we have.
Okay.
Do you have a copy of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
So let me see.
Of the script?
Of the this document that I have.
I do. We can bring it up.
Okay. So bold the scene headers to tell them apart clearly. You can choose to do that. Or you can just have them in all caps like they should be. I personally think that if it's bolded, it's too distracting, but that's just me. And no one's gonna dock you for formatting if you do that.
Right.
So it's honestly up to you, but don't bold and underline.
I agree. I was taught the old-fashioned way, which was all caps and that's it. No bold scenes, no underlines. But I've seen that in more recent scripts, but I agree. Don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. It's going to be clear enough that it's a scene header anyway, so I don't think you need to overdo it.
So Gerald, I am not 100% sure what your question is about action blurbs. Are you referring to, you said usually without a noun, just verbs. So could you clarify what you mean here?
May I please also ask your thought on short action blurbs? That sounds like a montage, maybe? Some consider them to be run on sentences, usually without a noun. Are you talking about?
Hey, sorry, real quick. Yeah. For future recordings, will you guys read the questions out loud? I should have mentioned that.
Otherwise,
you sort of were, but then I was like, I guess I should clarify just when you answer the questions that people in the future.
Right.
Thank you.
Sure. So
Doing great.
do you want to go back to that?
Yeah.
Okay, so Gerald asks, may I please also ask your thoughts on short action blurbs? Some consider them to be run on sentences, usually without a noun, just a verb. Okay, I think what you're talking about is either part of a montage or...
Let me see. I think he
Did he respond?
clarified
Okay.
runs after them like this. If your interior location has no windows like a cave, how should we present? Oh, I think that's the question.
Okay, that's John.
Verbs and an object runs after them like this.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know. I
I'm
need a
not
little more
clear.
clarification on that,
Yeah.
Gerald. However, personally, I'm a believer in writing in complete sentences for the most part. Sometimes you'll write some action, with a verb or something like that, jumps. But usually, I'm big on complete sentences.
Okay, so what about on scene and back to? How do you handle flashbacks, new slug line? So as far as on scene and back to, just like transitions and things like that, it's usually implied. So we're going to show you a sample script where there is something that you could have written, insert this, but just because we write it a specific way so that it's implied that it's an insert. So there are ways to hint at things like that without outright stating it. And we will show you that.
Was there... Now, is this a separate question? How do you handle flashbacks?
Yeah, how do you handle flashbacks? Again, we will show that. New slug line, like in the flashbacks, yes and no, it depends. We're going to show you. Verbs and an object runs after them like this. If your interior location has no windows like a cave, how should we present day or night if there's no sense of time apparent? Oh,
that's a really good question. But again, you choose, you decide. My guess is that, again, I'm speculating here, but that sounds like it's a story choice. If, for example, they've had a long day and they're running away from the pack of villains and they're in a cave now, maybe it's night. You decide. And then and you don't have to refer to anything else about the day, the time of day, but obviously it'll be dark. So you'll probably describe something in the action that says, it's super dark and they light a candle, they can see each other's faces, for example, or something like that. But yeah, I would say choose day or night.
Yeah, just choose.
Depending on where you're at in the story.
Exactly, just choose based on that.
Beat length for drama scripts.
Best length for drama scripts.
Oh, best length. Sorry, best length.
Best length for drama scripts. Okay, honestly, I'm not sure how to answer that because it really depends on how long it takes to tell your story.
Yeah.
But nothing,
on average,
nothing over 120 pages, please.
On average, about 120 for a drama, about 90 for a comedy.
Yeah.
Again, it can vary a little bit.
Yeah.
But those are, I guess if you want to call them a sweet spot, I guess those are sweet spots. That's probably the accepted length these days.
Yeah, for dramas, I would say anything between 100 pages and 120. Don't go over and probably don't go under 90 pages.
And keep this in mind, Holly. It on average, in terms of screenplay format, it's a minute per page. So if you look at some new film that has just come out, and when you're looking up the film somewhere, it'll usually tell you the length. It'll say 2 hours and 1 minute. So that's going to be 121 pages on average.
So Cheryl asks, could you talk about the difference between montage and series of shots stylistically when you use?
In my opinion, a montage and a series of shots is basically the same thing.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Yeah,
I have to agree.
If I saw a montage in a screenplay and saw a montage written out in format or a series of shots written out exactly the same way, I wouldn't have any problem with either one.
Exactly. I think really what the difference is, at least in my opinion, is that a montage is typically associated with a character performing an action, whereas a series of shots is typically associated with establishing shots or shots of the world. So that's how I would differentiate those two, but essentially they're the same thing.
Yeah.
And you would format them the same way, just to be clear. And we will show that. Could you discuss later at the end of a scene heading instead of day or night? I have thoughts on that.
Do share.
Yes.
Come on.
Oh man. So when I see later, and it's used too frequently, you can get lost in that and not remember when the scene is taking place. So if you have like 5 pages where each one ends in later, 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 I'm probably gonna forget what time of day it is. And also, again, the later is implied just based on changing the scene header.
Right.
You go from one scene to the next, a jump in time is implied.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. I don't think later should be used, but I'm not going to dock you points for format if you use it.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Thanks, Mariano.
Sure, Michelle.
Okay, so Gerald, I see you clarified what you meant. So if this were an action description.
Finishes proudly his speech, fiddles with his baseball cap.
So, okay, to some extent, yes, that could be a run-on sentence, but I can see it both ways. It really depends on how often you're using it. If you're doing that for every single line of action description, then it's like, okay, start using pronouns,
right,
and start using subjects.
Yeah, there's I think that's the answer.
Yeah.
I think again, Harold, if you use that sparingly just to punctuate certain moments,
that's when it should be used.
You're cool
to punctuate certain moments.
But if you're writing the whole screenplay like that, it's you want to avoid that.
Exactly.
You want to write in complete sentences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Christine, if a script that takes place in, say, the Antarctic and it's summer, it's technically only day. Any recommendations? Yeah, so it literally is just, what does the world look like at this moment?
Right.
Even if it's nighttime and it looks like day, if it looks like day, it's day.
Yeah. And they could even comment on that, you know, if they're new to Antarctica or the Antarctic, they could say, whoa, I mean, it's 10:30 p.m. and look, it's so bright out there. But yeah, it's day.
Yes. Okay, so John asks, some screenplay books like Christopher Riley's The Hollywood Standards.
I love that book.
Suggest different margins than the default settings for final draft. Which should we defer to?
Oh, well, I love that book, but I'd have to compare. I don't know off the top of my head. What do you think?
I think final draft is the industry standard.
Exactly.
And stick with that and don't change it. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. And be consistent.
Yes.
But I still love that book.
So I think we got through all those questions.
Oh, okay, cool.
Do you want to show them our properly formatted scripts so we can just show them some of because someone asked about montages and flashbacks. I think we should show them that.
The one we wrote?
The one that I sent to you. The one that if you've gotten a proofreading before, then you've probably seen this properly formatted script example. You know what? We may not have it on this computer.
I was just going to say, we may not have it.
Okay, well, then I guess I'll try to explain how to format a flashback.
Yeah.
So the flashback, you would essentially have, it would be almost like a scene header where it says flashback and then a colon. And then depending on whether or not your characters are speaking in the scene, if they're speaking, you're going to have a scene header, some action description, and their dialogue. And then you're going to keep going like that until you write end flashback, period.
Exactly.
So everything within there is going to be part of the flashback, even if you have different scene headers. If no one is speaking in the scene, then you will still have flashback colon, but then you're going to have a dash and then a brief description of what's happening in each shot in this flashback or montage. So, and again, flashbacks and montages are formatted the same way. So it's just a change in the word. So flashback or montage, and then if they're speaking in the scene headers, action description, dialogue. If they're not speaking, dashes.
Did that make sense? I think just to add to that, because that's great. Just to add to that, the main thing is to, again, not confuse the reader that something else might be happening. And that's why you need that flashback and then, you know, where we go. As opposed to in the action, I've seen some scripts that in the action will say, we flash back to the Middle Ages, blah, 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 blah. That you want to avoid. You want to just do it in a scene heading. And then when that scene is over, when that flashback is over, and a flashback.
And also, after this webinar is over, I can send the properly formatted script to you guys because we don't have it on this computer, but I do want you guys to see it. And I have annotated it to point out, like, this is how you do a flashback, this is how you write action description, and so on and so on. And it does go over some of the more specific things that you guys are asking too. So I'll send that later.
Yeah, that's good.
Holly asks, people cut each other off all the time while talking. Is that hard for a reader to read as opposed to shooting it? I've heard the former in that it's overload. I agree that if you have a bunch of people cutting each other off, it's going to be hard to read. And that is something that would better be expressed in actual filming.
Yes.
It's a choice that the director would make usually.
Yes.
And also, like, yeah, in real life, people cut each other off all the time.
Right.
A screenplay is not real life.
Yeah, it's an enhanced reality. I think I agree with that. I think that's absolutely right. Besides, a scene will have its own rhythm, and because of the rhythm that you establish either through action or because of the actual dialogue, you'll start to build up that kind of momentum in what you're talking about, Holly, in terms of that talking over each other. So keep it direct and let the rhythm take you there too.
Catherine asks, is Movie Magic an acceptable program to use for formatting? What are your thoughts on that?
Personally, that was the first formatting software that I ever bought and used, and I loved it. It brought me a great deal of joy, but Final Draft is the industry standard.
Yeah, I think, and this is not to sound rude to anybody, but I think once you become serious about screenwriting, you have to buy Final Draft. I'm just going to be honest.
No, I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
But like if you're just starting out, yes, things like Celtics and Movie Magic are perfectly fine to use.
Absolutely.
One that I do recommend is Writer Duet. That one is the most, that one is the closest to proper format as a free software.
Yeah.
Everything else I've seen usually has issues with it, especially Celtics. I can always tell when a script is written in Celtics because there's too much space allowed for dialogue, and also it will cut off action blocks halfway, or not halfway down the page, but in between pages. So I can always tell if it were Final Draft, that would not happen. John asks, how do you recommend formatting description or dialogue sound that happens before the fade in over black?
Oh, wait till you see our script. Well, we might as well give him an answer. John, you deserve an answer.
Yes, he deserves an answer. I think it should always start with fade in instead of over black because that's a decision the editor or director would make. It's not a decision you would make.
Exactly. So again, fade in is, I think, sacrosanct. Fade in is about the lights going out in a theater, and then you're fading in as the screen opens up, and you're literally going into another world, whether it's a world you recognize or a world you've never seen before.
Yes.
That's the way to begin a film or a screenplay in our case.
Yes.
And then, as Mick is saying, let that over black or whatever be decisions that the director and the editor makes. Just take them into a new world, John, and make that as exciting as you can visually, and that will hook your audience.
Yes. And then another John asked about what about fade in, and so I'll clarify. Fade in is always in features. You should always start your screenplay that way. Shorts by choice, television, never.
Right.
That's the short answer.
Love that answer. Well,
Thanks,
thank you, John.
Thank you. Okay, good to get some positive feedback.
Awesome.
So, should we share our amazing script? Wait. Oh, you meant the software.
Oh.
John meant Fade In, the software. Okay. Have you ever used that?
I don't know Fade In, no.
I have not used it.
Sorry.
I do know some of our classmates use it.
Do they?
Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
I think back to what Mick was saying, if you're just starting to write screenplays and you're just diving in there, use whatever software is available to you, because you want to make sure you want to do this.
Yes,
so
exactly.
so you don't have to spend a lot of money on software. Once you commit to writing screenplays, and with a goal of sending them out and hopefully selling some, then at that point I would get a final draft and use that.
Yeah, I will say that the only one that I say don't use is Celtics if you're submitting to a contest, because you will be docked points for formatting if you use that one. Because like I said, I can always tell when a script was written in Celtics because there are small errors that someone who reads a lot of scripts can see immediately. That's just my take on that.
Yeah.
So let's show our
Thanks,
amazing,
Holly.
Yes, thanks, Holly. Oh, wait a second. Steven.
Do writers actually get docked points if using open on or something else as opposed to fade in?
It depends on your reader. If it were me, I will dock you points.
And I would too. I want to see that fade in. I always start my format lectures with fade in after the title page.
So Brianna, for the next part, we wanted to do a thing where people can raise their hands. Is there a way that we can do that? They can like raise their hands and answer the questions that we're presenting to them?
Yeah, you can try it. Sometimes it gets a little chaotic, but you can certainly try it.
We love chaos.
Okay, no problem. You're doing
great.
great.
Place is all about.
So writers, just so you know, there's a function that you can say raise hands, and it'll raise your little hand and it'll be really cute in the under the attendees. You guys can see it. And then if you want them to answer either in the chat, or if you want to be able to like allow to talk, just push the allow to talk, and then you can also have them stop talking by doing that, by pushing the same thing.
Is there a way for you to allow them to talk? Because we can't really see it when we have this shared.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can do it. Just tell me who you want to call on.
Okay. We can't really even see who's raising their hands. That's the thing.
Okay. No problem. Are you, because you're screen sharing.
Yeah,
right.
So I guess like whoever you think should answer, we're fine with
that. That's a lot of pressure on me. Try something real quick. I'm open to it, but let's try something real quick because I want to keep the power on you guys, because I feel like all of a sudden I'm going to be like,
you have the
under your view options, check to see do you see view options?
View options.
Up towards the top. Maybe not. You probably don't.
Yeah, I don't think we have anything.
Okay, that's all right.
Yeah, we don't have anything that would allow us to see who's raising their hand.
Okay, I'll do it. I'll hop in and hop out. You got it.
Yay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm happy to. Just nervous. It's going to be great.
More collaboration.
Yes, and.
Yes, girl. Okay,
so
cool.
This is a script, a very short couple of scenes that Mick and I created. It's called Burn While Reading.
Yes.
Written by the M&M Squad.
Yes.
And it's an amazing script.
It's truly one of our greatest works.
It's terrible.
Don't tell them.
Oh, sorry. No, it's great. It's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. So we want to share it with you to show you how brilliant we are. No, we want to share it with you so that you can start thinking about or going back to some of the stuff that we talked about and see what you notice that may or may not adhere to what we were discussing.
Yes.
So as you can tell, it begins with, this is an original sci-fi.
Now, is that okay to do? Yes or no? Anyone want to answer that? Anyone?
Oh, Holly.
Hi, Holly.
Can we hear her?
I don't know. Unmute.
Unmute. Oh,
there.
Holly.
We can't hear her.
We can't hear Holly.
Holly, are you
I'm not sure. Holly, are you there? We can hear you if you are. Okay, we'll try again. Okay. Sorry, Holly.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, there you are.
Hi,
yes,
Holly.
Hi. Hello. You guys are awesome, by the way. You make it really
sweet.
super good. Anyways, so this is all wrong.
Yes.
What's wrong with it, sister?
Oh my gosh. Telling us it's an original sci-fi on the front page. I don't think that's a good idea.
No,
not at all.
Not at all. Good. Yeah, excellent.
There are a couple reasons for that. One, the genre should already be clear based off of what you've written, so you shouldn't have to clarify that for us. And then saying it's original, we're also already going to know that, because unless you write based on or adapted from, then we'll know it's your own original work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great, Holly. I'm putting you back.
Yay. So one thing I will point out is that log lines on the title page is actually okay now.
Isn't that great? Mick just turned me on to this because I hadn't seen that, and she reads more current scripts than I do.
Mhm.
And when she told me that log lines are now appearing on the title page of these screenplays, I was like, that is the best. Because I don't know if you know this, but log lines used to be on the spine of screenplays back in the old days. And now, and then they were gone, and they were used for other aspects of screenwriting and filmmaking. But now they're coming back on the title page, which is really great.
Yes.
Because again, readers, literary agents, producers, people like that, they have a stack of screenplays.
Yes.
And hopefully your title is good enough that it's going to hook the audience. But what if it's not? What if it's called Burn While Reading?
I think that's pretty catchy.
Well, all right, I'd read
opinion.
that too.
I would read
But-
that.
But what if it wasn't? Now you've got this log line because there's way too much reading to be done, so you want to go for something that's going to grab your attention. So log line will help.
Yes, and also the title of the script should always be in all caps.
Right. Now,
The log line sucks.
anybody notice anything wrong with this log line? When two aliens stumble across a customs officer who looks eerily like Brad Pitt, they have a lot of options after abducting him, including sabotage, romance, and plain out falling into a black hole. In the end, they realize they need to exude love for all species.
Anyone want to roast our perfect log line? Oh gosh. Okay.
But if you don't want, John,
Someone wants to roast
Unmute
us.
John.
Okay, roast us.
what's up, John?
I think it just takes 1 second to get
Okay.
it going. John, are you there? Let me try. Oh, there we go again. John? Oh, he's unmuted. No.
That's okay.
I guess he won't roast us.
It's not a very good log line. First of all, it's way too long.
Yes.
It says way too much.
Mhm.
It doesn't really give me a sense of what the story and the characters are all about.
Mhm.
And it also kind of tells me the ending too, which I may not want to know about when I hear the log line.
Right. So now, a little bit more that's wrong with our title page. Addresses, you don't need to add anymore since everything is pretty much virtual now.
Online.
You just need to have your phone number and your email address. And then obviously don't put email in case of an emergency. And yes, that's our real email. Just kidding. Okay.
All right, let's get into the nitty gritty.
All right. Fade in, dash, dash. We see a montage of people who we will later find out are our main characters experiencing fun and joy in a variety of life situations. Does anyone have anything to say about that? Anyone? Gerald?
I knew it'd be Gerald.
Gerald.
Jerry, you can talk if you want. I think it's on. I don't know why it's not working, guys. Sorry.
Let's see. Unmute.
Could the
Gerald.
responses be written?
Yeah, you can totally do it in the chat boxes. Can you see the chat box?
Maybe we should do it that way. I'd love to hear your voice, Gerald, but why don't we go to the chat boxes?
Oh, I see. We can have the chat up.
Okay.
What's going
I
on?
don't know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the chat could be a super easy way. There you go.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. There you go. There's Gerald. Sorry, my mic not working. Don't worry about it. You want to just type a response, Gerald?
Fade in.
Fade in. Yes, fade in. You got it.
10 out of 10.
All caps
Oh
with
my
a colon.
God. Yes. Oh, perfect. I love this.
Is there anything wrong? Or is there anything you want to say about the "we see a montage" paragraph?
Anyone have anything to say about our perfectly formatted montage? That montage is wrong. Okay, Gerald.
You're right.
Okay, Gerald.
Specifics, Gerald.
What would you do to make it right?
Right.
Non-descriptive.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yes.
That's very
John.
true.
That's John.
That's
yeah.
extremely true.
True.
And plus, like,
It's just so weird.
Who are
Well,
these?
yeah,
main characters?
exactly. Who are
Exactly,
these main
exactly.
characters? And it explains rather than
Yes,
shows.
montage, and then below use dash 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 for each scene that they are doing, each new location, each
Right.
new action.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
But yeah, I mean, let's see. Can I do this? Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. So again, we see a montage of people who we will later find out our main characters experiencing fun and enjoying a variety of life situations. It explains. It doesn't, like you're all saying. We don't know who these characters are.
Yes.
It talks about the future. Who we will. It doesn't stay in the present tense.
Yes.
It's a mess.
And also, literally, it's so vague that could describe the entire screenplay.
Exactly.
That could be the entire script. Fade out.
Exactly. So if that's the montage, I'd ask for my money back.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So, INS space 4:20 p.m. 2716 FDX. Andromeda, female, ageless, attractive AF, looks like Angelina Jolie. Winnows and wafts because she's in space and there is no gravity like there is on Earth. Suddenly, there is a boom that made her eyes bug out. She is walking towards the sound when Milky Way, female, 69, says, "I came as fast as I could." They discuss.
Okay. There's a lot there.
Yes.
Brilliant.
I know.
Stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
What are y'all noticing about this?
Anyone have anything to say about my perfect writing?
Huh?
Super should be used instead. Oh, I think what he's thinking is that this would be on the screen. Yes, the information that's on there, like 2716 FDX, that would totally be best used as a super.
Exactly. Later on.
Yeah, because otherwise we have no idea. We would have no idea that was written into the script. We don't know what 2716 FDX is.
Right.
And if you really want to express that, you can do a super. Okay, let's see.
Oh, great responses. John said, too much mumbo jumbo in scene header. Absolutely.
Yes.
And it's not even using format correctly.
Yeah.
And I capitalize AF. What is that?
Capitalize AF. Attractive AF. Yeah, capitalize AF because it technically is a what's the word for that? Where it's like a letter that represents the rest of the word. I'm very knowledgeable.
We'll give you credit for that.
Acronym. Thank you, John.
Well, bad dialogue for sure.
Yes.
Incorrect tense. Yes, there was some incorrect tense there. So
yes.
Good to pick that up.
There's no point in writing "I came as fast as I could" if it's in the dialogue. Yes, Natasha.
Nice.
You're the best. Yes, exactly.
Oh, acronym.
Yes,
right.
Acronym.
Thank you, John.
You're a little late, Mariano. So yes, exactly. Don't describe what's happening before it happens. I unfortunately see this all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
You start a scene and someone will write in, well, there'll be the scene header, and then in the action they say, John and Linda are going to have a drag out, are beginning a drag out fight that will lead to a divorce. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, yeah. We want this to be a discovery, right? Yes. We want this to be real time, mm-hmm. an emotional experience, because screen yes. time is emotional time.
Yes.
And then we want to discover it as everyone else is discovering, as they're discovering.
Yes, and to build off of that, anything in the script should be something that we can see, because otherwise we will never know it was written into the script.
Right.
The only reason that we would know "I came as fast as I could" is written into the script is because Milky Way actually says it. If that was just action description, we would have no way of knowing right. that you wrote that in
exactly.
there.
Good stuff.
So
yes, there you go, Holly. You got it. M24 speaks before introduced. Yes. Right. Exactly. Nice.
Yes. All right. Holly is very observant.
Holly's got it.
Okay. They walk away. Back to.
Right. Go for it.
The montage continues as our heroes glide through space and time and FDX, a post-Fox dimension explosion.
Number 4, Earth, exterior, day. And Milky Way says, while trying to get through customs without showing her true form, which is an alien, in case that was not clear already, how can I eat the Wi-Fi?
In this universe, customs looks like a coffee shop because back in 2715, a law was passed. Should we end there and see what
Sure,
anyone
let's see
said?
what's going on.
So
Okay,
back
so
to-
so John, you bring up a good point. Back to, right, that's funny. It's the first scene.
Yes, exactly. We're literally not going back to anything. And also, if you were to use back to in your script, it would not be a transition. It would be on the left-hand side, just like a scene header.
Right.
Or just like montage or flashback. That's where it would be. But don't do it.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anything else anyone want to say? Numbering scenes is wrong.
There you go. Excellent, Holly. We're not numbering those scenes. That's going to be someone in pre-production who's going to break down that script and change it into a shooting script. And only shooting scripts will have numbers. Good.
Yes,
nice.
exactly.
Nice. So
don't explain something that isn't shown. Exactly. Thank you, John. Gerald should be caps and exterior first. Exactly.
Good.
Exactly.
Nice work.
Great. Now, this action description block at the bottom of this page, anyone think that's too long? Not long enough?
Just right?
Just right? I mean, personally, I love it.
Go ahead and read it on your own if you'd like, and tell us action and parentheticals. Oh yeah, Milky Way, right?
Exactly, the parenthetical.
That Milky Way's parenthetical is not a parenthetical.
Yes.
That's action, and that can have its own action block, and you're in good shape. And
but even if that was an action block, the part where it says showing her true form, which is an alien, in case that was not clear already. If it's not clear, try to figure out a way to express that to us without outright stating that.
Exactly.
You
because
know?
Again, you don't want to explain.
Yes.
You want to show only in the script. So if you, and again, keep in mind, we're talking about visual storytelling here, right? So whatever your alien looks like, and in this world, aliens can look like anything you want, right? That's the fun part. Describe them. Describe them when we first see them.
Yes.
What does that alien look like when he or she or it appeared? And that's going to give us a sense that, whoa, it's not a human. And so that you won't have to fix things later.
Holly says, how far would readers actually read on a script like this? Honestly, if I were reading it for a contest, and I only had to read the first 10 pages, I would stop there.
And Holly and everybody else, that's not uncommon. If we're talking about, this is important to keep in mind. Anyone who's in a position to open a door or pass a screenplay forward, they're going to read the first 10 pages.
Yes.
They might read the last 10 pages. I know some people
Yes.
who read the last 10 pages as well. But if they're not hooked in some way in the first 10 pages, if they're not grabbed either by a character or a situation or maybe even format issues, frankly.
Format issues is the easiest reason that a reader or executive or agent can have to throw your script out.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important. It's the first impression that you're giving to them.
That's
so
right.
if they see the title page is wrong, they have no reason to think the rest of your script is correct as far as story structure, characterization.
And so there's no excuse for that. I mean, you may have written the most wonderful story with the most marvelous characters, and we don't want those to be lost in a heap, in a pile. So take the time to get the format down so that doesn't have anything to do with any, hopefully, any rejections.
Yes. So in this action description, there's way too much information here. Also, one thing that I did not mention is that writing that someone looks like a celebrity or looks like a real person, instead of saying that, just describe what they look like, and then we can connect things from there. There's always the chance someone doesn't know who Brad Pitt is.
There is.
So if someone's reading your script and it says he looks like Brad Pitt and we don't know who that is, we're like, I have no idea what to visualize.
Yeah.
So we need something to visualize. So it's best to just explain he has brown hair, he is blah, 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 blah.
And besides, God, we know this isn't true, but what if they don't like Brad Pitt? I know. And, that could possibly affect how they read this darn script.
Exactly.
So just describe him as, hot, buffed, doing the whole shebang, and it'll work.
Yes.
So Gerald points out many also just skim to see the white pages.
To see the white page, like the pages that are not so blocky. Sure, some people probably do that.
Yeah.
Um,
Although, if I'm understanding your point, Gerald, something else to keep in mind, um, by white pages, sometimes that might mean, a page full of dialogue, which shows a lot of white.
mhm.
You make sure that you're finding a balance, in my
Yeah,
opinion,
I
between
agree.
all dialogue and visual information, because it's visual storytelling. We want to see what's
Yes.
going on. We want to avoid talking heads. We want to
Mhm.
avoid people sitting around talking.
Mhm.
Less so on TV at times, but even television is visual.
Yeah.
So yeah, all for white page, but try not to rely exclusively on dialogue to tell your
Yes.
story.
Yes. So yeah, this action description, whoops, I just skipped right past it. This
As
action,
you should.
as I should, exactly, as I would if I were reading the script.
That's right.
I'd be like, customs officer, oh God, I'm just gonna keep going. And see, it goes on to the next page too.
Right. It goes on forever.
It goes on forever. If you have action that's like this and you really need to include all the information, then separate the things. I usually
Right.
go by if it's a different character doing something different, that's going to be its own block.
Right.
Not always the case. It depends on how much it relates to what is happening in that block. We will get to that.
Yeah.
Okay, but it depends on how much time it takes between this action and this action. If there's like 1 second of time, it can be on the same block. If it's a little bit more time, it can be on the next block. There are many things that go into play as far as where to separate your action.
And again, keep in mind that you want to find a balance between no action description and too much action description.
Yeah.
3 or 4 lines of action is great.
Yeah.
Without getting into the minutia, you don't want to be too poetic or
Mhm.
anything like that. Just the facts,
Mhm.
just what we're seeing, and to keep the flow going, and then, but not overdoing it either, or else
Yes.
break it up.
Yes. And then Gerald pointed out the drone shots. What's wrong with that?
What is wrong with that?
What's wrong with our drone shot? We really want this drone shot in our movie.
Any ideas?
Anyone want to tell us why we can't have our drone shot? It's so important to the story.
It is.
It's
It is
so important. Yes.
Yes, John.
John says leave it to the cinematographer.
Leave it to the cinematographer.
Yes!
Exactly. There you go.
Better to describe it in action, perhaps. There are ways to explain what this drone shot would look like.
Oh, absolutely. High in the sky. The birds are fluttering and wafting down on the church or something like that. Yes, exactly. You can find the visual language for that. Absolutely. And so someone's going to read it. Sorry.
It's okay.
Someone's going to read it and someone's going to go, oh, someone, like the director of the cinematography, they're going to read it and go, yeah, cool, drone shot.
Yeah.
But you got it into their head. You described it.
Yes.
Then they figure out the drone shot.
It's kind of like you tell them what to do without telling them what to do, and you make them think it's their idea to add this amazing drone shot.
Always.
Yeah, and
exactly.
I will be sending you guys the actually properly formatted scripts that I send to everyone who gets a proofreading done from me.
Good.
It has annotations and everything, so a lot of stuff is explained in there that we're not necessarily going to get to here, but you'll see everything that I always point out when I do proofreadings.
Totally.
What's
Let's
next?
see. John got an interesting point. Throwing backstory into the description, potential casting, contemplation.
Yeah, as far as that action block
Right.
above, yes, exactly. There are a lot of issues with that outside of it being too long.
Yes.
So we dive deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into Milky Way's mind.
First of all, well,
Oh.
nope.
Oh.
What?
What?
Oh, yes. Yes. Gerald, you got it. Too many we's.
Gerald.
Yeah, this is great. We're not there, right? We are not there.
We are not there.
We're not there.
We are not there.
So
in the script.
we is like poof, gone.
And also, saying we see is just taking up unnecessary space on the page.
Yeah.
Everything that you write in there is what we're going to see.
That's
so
right.
You don't need to tell us we see this. Whatever you write, we will see it.
We see it. No need to mention it. We're not there.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes. So interior Milky Way's alien frontal lobe continuous. Can anyone tell me? I know we didn't go over continuous, but can anyone tell me if continuous is correctly used here?
Don't be shy.
Say it.
Tell him.
Okay, so
No.
John says no. It is not one shot exactly.
Right.
Gonna take a wild guess and say no. Yes, Natasha, that is quite a wild guess, but that is correct.
Yeah.
So it is not correctly used because when you use continuous, you have to think, could this scene theoretically be filmed moving from one location to the next in one shot without breaking the scene?
Right.
If it could not, it is not continuous.
Good. Yeah.
Yes.
And then watch this. We slowly begin to realize that it was all a dream.
But how do we realize that? How?
How can are we there? We're not there.
Yeah.
Even if let's say Milky Way began to realize that it was all a dream, even that is something that you can't see on the screen. That is an
Yes.
interior, in this case, realization, and so you can't show that on the screen.
Yes.
Now, granted, they might make a facial expression, which you could write. They might look twice or something. But it's, again, if you can get that across through action, great. Show us the action. But the realization explains, which you can't see.
Yes. So now, who is Andy? Who is this person speaking? Who is this?
We've never seen this
We
guy.
have never seen this person, but actually we have. It's Andromeda, but it's her nickname, Andy.
Remember that? Remember that, gang?
So see how confusing that is if we refer to her that way in this character block and we didn't refer to her that way before. We have no clue if this is the same person.
Yeah.
Only refer to them as a nickname in dialogue. Otherwise, keep their name the same.
Yeah. Exterior space, 3 a.m. booty call time. What do you think?
What are your general thoughts on booty
No, this
call
is a
time?
serious. This is a serious conversation about screenplay format. Seriously.
It's 3 a.m. and
What's
known booty
who's
call
booty
time.
call time? The crew. Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Yeah, there
Thanks,
you go.
guys. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, you don't need booty call.
No, you don't need that.
And do you need 3 a.m.?
No, you don't.
Okay.
If the time is that important, express it in the action
Right,
visually, so
right.
we know it's 3 a.m.
Right. Right. As Milky Way and Andromeda.
Pass by Big Ben. That
Right.
clocks that
The
strikes
clock's
3
3
times.
a.m. Yeah, then we'll get it.
Yeah.
Or that's.
Yes. Okay.
All right. Andromeda and Milky Way have now kidnapped customs officer trapped behind the force. He wishes he were back on Earth where his family and job and husband is. And Brad Pitt says, I miss my man a beat. Now give me $5,000 and that skim latte I asked for.
It's a very meta moment because Brad Pitt actually shows up in this moment and he is not happy about being in a shitty script.
Emoji. Okay, this is getting ridiculous, but
No, I think this is perfect.
You know, well, all right. Is it perfect or is it ridiculous?
Anyone want to prove me wrong here?
Customs officer.
Yeah.
Right. Good job, Holly. You got it, sister.
What else? Anything about the other character names? Andromeda. Yes, thank you, John.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Exactly.
Nice.
And Andy's name is misspelled.
Yep.
Yes, it absolutely
Good.
is.
He wishes he were back on Earth.
Yeah, what do we think?
What's with
What
that?
do we think about that? Anyone? How do you show that?
How do you show that? Right.
Exactly.
That's
We
yeah.
can't-
We have no way. You know how you could show that? I'll give you some examples. He wishes he were back on Earth is not right because that shows interior thought, which we can't show.
Mhm.
But you know what a character is thinking or feeling by what they see and by what they do.
Yes.
So for example, let's say that he had a wallet. And let's say that he took out his wallet and he took out a photograph of him with some family members. Like in this case, I think it's his husband and maybe some kids or something like that. Or let's say he looks out the window of the spaceship and in far, far away, he can make out Earth, the planet Earth.
Mhm.
Well, that's, he sees Earth.
Yes.
That's going to give us a sense of he wishes he were back on Earth. So
Yes.
again, you can show What are characters feeling or thinking by what they say, not what they say, excuse me, by what they see and by what they do?
Yes, and by what they say to a certain
To a certain extent, right, of course.
Mhm. Anyone have anything to say about a beat?
Mm,
Anyone?
we got the beat.
We got the beat. I guess I'll explain.
Yeah.
A beat is pretty much useless in a screenplay. John says beats are different for everyone. Exactly. A beat
Yes,
is simply
that's
a
right.
moment in time, or it's a change in emotion.
Right.
Based on Brad Pitt's dialogue here, we can tell that the emotion is switching from "I miss my man" to "now give me my $5,000 and that skim latte I asked for." Those are two very clearly different emotions.
Yes.
And we don't need a beat to tell us that. And also, like I said, a beat is simply a moment in time.
Yes.
Like John said, it's different for everybody.
I think one of the reasons why some people do use a beat or beat in screenplays is sometimes they come from a theater background.
Yeah,
where they're
theater, it's okay to use. It's a completely different thing here.
Exactly. So
Mhm.
stay away from the beats.
Yes. Emojis in screenplays? Yes.
Not yet.
Yes,
Maybe in
no.
20 years, but not yet.
I'm going to start it. What is a very meta moment? Emojis aren't standard? Yes.
There you go. See?
Yeah.
John, we're in sync, man.
Yeah. Meta moment, like it's referring to itself.
Yeah.
If you're writing a parody script, I would be like, yes, this is an amazing script.
That's funny.
But otherwise, don't do that.
Yeah.
Back to scene. And that is the properly formatted way to say back to. But again, I don't think that's ever needed.
No.
Because really, we weren't away from this scene. We stayed here the whole time. Nothing changed. So what are we going back to?
Right. I mean, in a sense, sometimes when people write back to scene, it's because they imagined, I think in their mind, a close-up, for example.
Yeah.
Or a cutaway or something. But if it's written in a certain way, again, if you were to look at that photograph of his family or something like that, then you wouldn't need the back to scene.
Okay, so tears threaten to escape the eyes of Milky Way and Andromeda. They change their minds. There's a couple things wrong with that. First of all, tears threaten to escape the eyes of. That's a very complicated way to say Milky Way and Andromeda
Tear up, yeah, right.
And that action block would only be one line if you wrote it that way instead of this way. It's unnecessarily taking up 2 lines. Also, they change their minds. Their dialogue is going to tell us that. Right. We don't need it to be explained before they say it.
Exactly.
Now, Gerald brought up something. VO on the phone is confusing. Actually, this is something that I have seen people do, and I actually recommend people do this, because if you have a narrative voiceover throughout the script, and you also maybe have a scene where people are talking on the phone, what if the person talking on the phone is also the same person doing the narrative voiceover? So we don't know where that voiceover is coming from. I like to always specify VO on phone, VO on TV, VO on radio. Wherever it's coming from, I like to specify it right there.
Or just VO. If it's like omniscient.
If it's a narrative voiceover, right, just VO. But
right,
if it's coming from somewhere in the scene, I like to specify where it's coming from right there.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think another reason that he's saying that is because nobody is on the phone in this scene. VO over phone. On phone is a shorter way to say it. It's the most brief and a concise and effective way to explain this coming from the phone.
Right. Besides VO, whenever you see VO in a script, and again, this is for someone later on who's using the script in terms of sound recording and stuff like that, VO is going to say to them automatically, oh, okay, we need to record this in post. Yes. We need to record this in post. So yes, just using the VO itself is like a flashing light for something that's going to have to be done later on.
Yes. And then one more thing about it, if someone, let's say there's an executive assistant or someone who's reading a ton of scripts, mm-hmm, and they're just skimming through yours. If they see VO, like they're just skimming through dialogue and they see VO, they're not going to know where it's coming from unless they go back and read the action description. And if you make them do that, they're going to be mad. So it's best to just explain it right there so that they don't have to go back and look at it. You don't want to piss anyone off.
For smooth reading.
Smooth reading.
Yes.
What do you think about someone hearing voices? Is that VO? Yes, that is VO.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely, that is
That's
VO.
from John.
Yes, thank you, John. Anything anything where the character who is speaking is not in the scene is a VO.
Right.
We have changed our minds, attractive human. We always had a feeling that we would bring a customs officer of the planet Earth to reside in this glorious world that has become to be known as ours. So this dialogue block is just so long.
Blah, blah,
And this is something Celtics will do, actually, where they cut off, it cuts off this and this. And you may not even know it's doing that until you export it. So that's something that if I see that, I'm gonna dock you points for formatting. Brad Pitt exits. They look disappointed.
Fade to black.
Fade to black. Does anyone have anything to say about those last couple of beautifully written lines? From us professional screenwriters.
There you go.
Exits, not exits.
Yeah,
exactly, not
thank you,
all
John.
caps.
Dialogue is very long.
Yes,
fade out, right
Yay,
on.
everyone says fade
With
out.
a period, right on, Holly.
Yes.
You got it.
Um,
Excellent. Oh, yeah, Patty got that too. Yeah.
yes.
Right. Okay, and Gerald says, seems to be not connected
Yes,
the
to the
dialogue.
character name. Yes, exactly. And,
Right,
and like I was
exactly.
saying, Celtics will do that on accident sometimes. So
So proofread.
always look
Yeah,
at your exported
proofread.
draft
Right.
before you send it to a contest, because if it looks like that, we're going to be like,
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
no caps on exit. Exactly.
Thank you.
Yes,
Good job, Patty.
Yes, there's no reason for it to be in all caps.
They look disappointed.
They look disappointed. Anyone have anything to say about that? They look disappointed. Who is they?
You can show that.
Yes, you can show
Don.
that.
Thank you, Don.
Don, thank you. Yes, you can show that. They can frown.
You bet.
Their eyebrows can crinkle.
Right. They can.
They can face palm.
There you go.
Show us an action. Give them an action to express that they're disappointed.
It's visual, gang.
Yes.
Yeah. And
exactly.
then, as you were saying, fade out, period, all in caps.
Yes.
Nice work.
Yay, everyone is so smart.
I know, terrific.
So I think we have some questions, but I can't get to them.
Okay, let's see.
How do I get to the Q&A? Anyone?
Brianna, are you there?
Okay, I'll stop the share and then.
Oh, I'm here.
Hi.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that stopping the share would help with the question.
Okay,
got it.
sure.
Ooh, I got it. Okay.
Cool.
So Dawn asked log lines on title page for just features, not TV. I've seen it on both.
Yeah, that's a good
I've
question.
even seen it on shorts.
Wow, that's great.
I've seen it everywhere. And it's okay for anything, to be honest. Well, okay, if it's a TV spec script, I would say no, because the reader is already going to know what that show is
Right,
about.
what that show's about,
If
exactly.
it's a pilot, you can briefly give a very brief log line about what the show is about. So I assume
This is from Stephen.
I assume the two of you are going to say that pre-lap is an editing/directorial decision. So when using dialogue to conclude an existing scene, but segue to a new scene, is the suggestion to only use voiceover? Again, and I actually just corrected someone on this yesterday.
Yeah.
I say don't use pre-lap because yes, it is an editing/directorial decision. You would have to have a really good reason to have that pre-lap come over. You'd have to have an extremely good reason, like the story would not make sense otherwise.
Right.
Otherwise, don't do it. It's not up to you. And it also breaks up the flow of the scene. If I'm having to read what they're saying and then it goes into the actual scene, it's like, wait, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
For the screenplay, just make it as clear as possible for the reader. So Brad Pitt is now there, not just looks like. Yes, we actually got Brad Pitt. Okay.
Question from Dawn. Question, or what if a character interacts with themselves from another time period? Well, that's interesting. In their mind's eye, essentially, is a connection needed to be made in formatting.
So, like, are they speaking to themselves? There's a couple ways that I would say to do that. If they're just speaking to themselves in a voiceover, it would just be their voice VO.
Exactly.
And then, like, if they're actually seeing their past self, it would be like young John.
Yeah, exactly.
Or John.
Right, or fantasy John or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, because Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of other situations. Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think that's, yeah.
I think
I think just to make sure that you clarify that there are two images, if we're seeing those images, and if not, it's just a voiceover. Yeah.
John asked, should log lines on title pages be left adjusted? They should be center. They
Yeah.
should be centered just like everything else on the title page,
Yeah.
except for the email and phone number.
And again, for log lines, one line.
Yes.
Less than 30 words.
One
Yeah.
sentence. Catherine says each slug description should be only one line or one sentence, and then skip a line for the next sentence. Wait,
You're talking about the scene, the scene headings. Each scene heading should be only one line or one sentence, and then skip a line for the next sentence.
Oh, for like the action description?
Right.
Yes, it'll automatically do that for you if you format it properly as a scene header. It does double space before the action description.
Exactly. So scene heading, double space, action begins.
Yes.
Left margin.
Okay, I think that's all the questions that we got.
Okay.
I think. Is there anything else in the chat?
I don't know.
Should
Brianna, are there any other?
I don't think so. I mean, I think you've got, there was one that I tried to get moved over, but I didn't see three.
Okay.
I think that's it. There was one. Yeah, I think so. There's so much in the chat. Normally there's not so much. It's so good.
It's really good chat. That was great. That was great.
Someone's raising their hand. Can we talk to her?
Oh, yeah, look at you.
Catherine.
Hi, Catherine.
Hi, Catherine.
Oh, hi. I'll take the other question. I just wondered, when I have a beginning of my script as a flashback, and where do you put the year if you want them to be aware of the year of the flashback? And then when you come back to present day, do you put the year or just present day or nothing?
Okay.
That's a really good question.
I have an answer, but if you want to answer, you can answer that first.
Well, again, what I do is I'll do flashback, and then where it takes place, dash, day or night, and then in parentheses, I'll do 1959.
Okay, here's the reason I say don't do that.
Okay. Yeah.
We're not going to know the year unless.
Are you saying in the action?
Well, even if it's in like montage or flashback, this location, this date, we're not going to know that date unless it's like a super over the screen.
Yes.
We're not going to know unless it's expressed in some other way. So maybe there's a calendar in the scene, or maybe they're checking their phone.
Absolutely.
Or maybe there's like an old phone that shows us it's the 1980s. Anything like that expresses visually what year it is, that's the way to do it. Otherwise, we are going to have no idea what year it is.
I'll go with that. That works too.
Okay.
So, and then Catherine, then to end it, you were asking about that too, right?
Yes.
So again, either end flashback on the right-hand side with a period, and then that tells us that the flashback is over, so we're not in 1959 or somewhere else. And the new slug line is going to tell us that it should be clear that we're back in the present. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah. And so visually, if you can't show what year it is, just don't do it because.
Yes, because otherwise we're not going to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
I think that's it.
I think that's it.
Great.
This was fun.
Looks like there are just a couple more questions in there, but just take a quick look and see. If not, we are almost out of time. So I'm just going to let you peruse in case there's one more good one that you're like, ooh.
Okay, text messages. I'm going to send you guys a document where I have text messages in it. So you'll see that in heavy action pieces, would it be a good idea to break it up into separate montages rather than all at once? Okay,
well,
montage
is an action. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Montage would typically be associated with changing between different locations.
Right.
If you're just having a lot of action, I would say break it up as like, I think I said this before too, break it up as what action is different from the one before. I don't know if I'm explaining that properly.
The car zooms down the driveway.
Yeah.
Double space. It turns around and goes left. Double space. A little old lady steps in front. You know,
And-
so that
yeah.
you're going through moments, but the 1 or 2 lines of action, then the double space keeps it moving forward.
For action scripts, think about the pacing, and
Yeah.
thriller scripts and horror
Yeah.
scripts, think about the pacing.
Yeah.
So if they're walking down the hallway and you want the suspense to build, have that as one action block, and then like the door opens is its own action block. So
Mhm.
it really hits. So let's see what our next question is. On a flashback, where do you put the year? We did that.
Mhm.
Is super or Chiron preferred? I've seen both. I would prefer super because it's less letters. That's just what I think.
Yeah.
But either one is okay.
I think that's it. Those are the general, you guys, I feel like you're fielding so many questions, so I'm going to let you be free.
Cool.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And you can send me the docs and I'll forward them to everybody. So cool.
All right, thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.